And so, again, I am Dr. Eve, and the way we do business here, I was sharing with Kim, is we do 6 degrees, 6 degrees of living, well being. So, we not only are looking at how you show up in your financial well-being, but how you show up in your mental, your spiritual, your physical, your social, your emotional, all of that matters. And so, what we're doing here in our community is redefining well-being as the highest form of equity for us all. And when we do that, we are assuring that we are creating a supportive environment that will allow each of us to grow. So, welcome to the call. Anyone who is new, please take time to introduce yourself. We have Kimry Dupree on the line today. And where are you calling in from, Miss Dupree? What city and state?
Atlanta.
Atlanta. Welcome again to the call. And so we start our calls with how you're showing up in the call today, meaning whatever your state of mind. Oftentimes we begin meetings, as you probably are both aware. We just dive right into whatever a meeting is about without allowing one to say, hey, I'm here and here's what I'm feeling today, whether that's joy or blissful or, hey, I'm, a little perplexed today, right? So we believe to make in making space and creating space that allows women to show up in their full selves. And so, if you will take a moment to drop into the chat the way that you were showing up in the call today, and your name, where you're calling in from, and how you're showing up to the call today, and I will do the same. All right, grateful. I love it, love it, love it. From Atlanta, showing up grateful. Again, I was showing up a little confused today because I thought I had it just perfect. And how about that when you think you have things just perfect, anything can go wrong. Anything can go wrong with technology. So that's how I'm showing up today. But I'm here. I'm pushing through. Why? Because this matters. Why? Because our work matters. And I have made a commitment to being in this space every single week, bringing knowledge, understanding, and wisdom to the call that we might be able to move forward in the things that God has for us. I see you showing up from Omaha, Nebraska. She said, relishing in a new day. I love it. Thank you so much for coming into the space. We have been studying 15 secrets successful people know about time management. Here in the space, we do group work. And then because of that, we like to hone in on a lot of the things that we have been learning that has allowed us to be able to elevate or prepare ourselves for seasons of elevation. And so we have been reading 15 secrets successful people know about time management. Why is time management important? Because we have so many goals in our lives, and we already know that as moms, as women, as caretakers, we have a lot of us spread it very, very thinly across many areas. And so we have been studying how to effectively manage our time and look at ways that we can reclaim our time. And we know that some periodically the distribution of our time can be uneven. And so we are talking about chapter 10 today. If you have read this chapter, by the way, Kim, Ms. Dupree, the book that we are reading is 15 Secrets of Successful People Know About Time Management. We've been doing this series so that as we are growing in our spiritual, physical, business, health, all the 6 degrees of well-being, we are utilizing this tool, as this book as a tool. And so in chapter 10, I don't know if Raquel, if you've had a chance to read it, but I know she has been with us on the call for most of this particular study. And today the author is talking about the powerful Pareto principle. And he really goes back to a simple question of, could a simple analysis of your workload make 80% of it disappear? Given we are such very, very busy women in all areas of our lives, could a simple analysis of our workload make 80% of it disappear? Could it? So tell me, what's an average day for you? What is an average day for you? This is meant to be an engaging conversation, and so I am looking forward to hearing from you. What does an average day look like for you? Anyone?
Hi, Dr. Eve. Hi, Kimmery. An average day for me, I homeschool during the day, but my daughter is in high school. She's actually going into her junior year. So her curriculum is pretty, independent. It's online, but I come in when, it's on gym days at the Y, or, sometimes she likes to go to this pottery place here, and that I'll consider that her art. You know, there's a co-op here, and the co-op for homeschool students offers different classes. So our days look different every day, pretty much. I work overnights um, as a CNA. So, I worked last night, got off at 7, and I'm up at 12. I woke up at about 11:47. So I don't sleep much,
Mm.
except on the weekends. I do keep Saturday Sabbath. So I look forward to the Sabbath every week to get that rest and to catch up. And on Tuesdays, I come to the lunch and learn.
Yes, very
I
committed.
Yes, I could. I just want to hear your take on this principle. I did look at it. I took my book with every intention to work, but we were absolutely swamped last night. So, um, just your input and your um, I'll
Oh,
chime in as I can, but I didn't read the chapter. I'm so sorry.
no worries. We're going to walk through it. It's very small. And the beauty of the work that we do and the work that we are doing, um, it's very small bite sizes.
Yeah.
That's what I really love about the book is that it has bite sizes. Like we're talking a chapter is about maybe 4 or 5 pages, right?
Oh
You
my
can,
goodness, I should have read.
like four or five pages. No, 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 no.
Oh
You working
wow.
overnight. That's a part of that distribution. You know what we're saying? So we're going to begin to look at some things. You, they're not uneven. They are required, right? And that is a requirement for your sustainability. So that is not something that this principle necessarily can change for you, except you begin to think about what do I want my future to look like. So that's when it will begin to apply successfully in the area uh, of your sustainability. Right now, you have to do what we all have to do, what we have to do. I have to show up here. Why is this actually a part of my job? This literally is a part of what I do every single day, is build the capacity of an organization that supports Black women, right? This is a part of that. It looks beautiful. It's a little complex on the other side, though, on the other side of it. But we show up when we do the work that we have to do. Why? For our good, for our sustainability, to teach others how to do the same, right? So no sorries, no worries, no, that's good. We're going to walk through this chapter. What's an average day look like for you, Kimry? You're beautiful, by the way. I love your picture.
Oh, thank you. If I turned on the camera, you would just say beauty is on the inside. So,
Oh, it is anyway. It really is. Go ahead.
but it's very busy. I really try to operate in gratefulness so I'm not frustrated.
Yes.
Because I always feel like I don't have any time to waste. So it can make me very in work mode, very action oriented, very much looking to check things off the list, which gets me excited. Typically, I'm up by 5, having my devotion time with the Lord. After that, real estate, because for me, my fight is for focus. And I didn't enter the inner circle to play games. I entered the inner circle because there's something that I want on the other side. And I know that I already didn't have the time, but I was committed to make my money work for me. And it was an investment in myself. So I set that time right after my devotion to have my inner circle time, whether I'm running reps, whether I'm following up on tasks from Kim the Builder's program, whether I'm reading over notes and trying to digest some of Derek's, coaching calls or whatever it is. I try to make sure that I dedicate time daily to getting that done. Then typically my kids are getting up for school, so get them out the door. Then start work. I travel sometimes for work, so just an executive for a consulting firm. So that definitely takes up 8+ hours a day. I think 8 is probably a joke. It's more like
Right.
10 to 12. And then today, after I finish, I got 6 o'clock rep, no, some kind of call today with TF o'clock. And then I have my Bible study where I co-lead with a group of women, about 25 of us. I have that from 8 to 9:30, 9:30 to 10:30. Probably gonna spend some time with hubby, and then I'm down.
Oh,
So a lot of me, my day is accounted for, and I usually am tired by the end of the day.
yeah.
I've got to find a little bit more time for myself,
Yes.
but a lot of times, I've listened to different, speakers, and like everybody got the same 24 hours.
That's
So
right.
that way,
1,440 minutes.
yeah, I just try to maximize, and I've been listening to some of the teachings that Terica had loaded on our portal from Myron Golden,
Mm-hmm.
that called the Idiot Tube. So really transformed my mind that you don't got time to watch any TV. And ever since I really started this program, like I don't even get a chance to watch anything on TV because I'm telling myself you didn't enter this program to play. You entered this program because you want something different out of your life, and you got to maximize every moment of your day so that you don't waste your investment. So that's usually me just trying to make sure I'm taking care of everybody that's here in the house, and then trying to take care of my relationship with the Lord, and then trying to just make sure that I'm sane at the end of the day, which my Lord Almighty helps me stay in the right mind. So that's my
Absolutely. Thank you so much for sharing that, because, he is our priority, and anything that we spend more time with than him is an idol. And so he makes all things perfect. And so I'm grateful, and I share that value with you, in terms of our Father, who deserves our attention first and foremost. Thank you so much for coming into the space. And I am hoping that by the end of this very small chapter, you will see yourself there also, and that you also will see some, maybe ways that you too can, scale back to make sure that that 80% is completely productive, right? So you have a full day. Thank you, Dottie, for coming into the room. We are talking about what does an average day look like for us as we begin to peel back the layers of the powerful Pareto principle, which is the 80-20% of distribution. Where do we spend our time? How are you doing today? How are you showing up? You can put how you're showing up in the call, in the chat if you'd like. We are also taking information from the chat if you so choose. But we would love for you to share with us what's an average day look like for you? And it's okay if you want to just put it in the chat. We'll just go ahead and move on. As you begin to think about that question, if you want to just chime in through the chat, please do so. We're going to go ahead and talk about this chapter briefly. The author begins with a story, of course. All things do well when we share a story. He's talking about discoveries in an Italian garden and how he realized that there was an uneven distribution of how we spend our time. The observation caused him to think about that uneven distribution and about wealth, and discovered that 80% of that time, 80% of the land in Italy, which is what the story was about, was owned by just 20% of the population. 80% of the land was owned by 20%. How often have we heard that 1% of the wealth, 99% of the wealth is owned by 1% of the population? We've heard that, right? We've heard that. So he also begins with talking about the universal truth about the imbalances of our inputs and outputs, known as the Pareto principle, which is the 80-20 rule. The 80-20 rule, that rule that says 20%, that while it doesn't always come to be an exact 80-20 ratio, the imbalance is often seen in various business cases, in our life, in our employment, in our families, in our home life, in our, again, all 6 degrees of our lives. We're going to be talking about, I'm going to ask you a few questions to see how this all lines up for you. So as I move through the chapter, the author mentioned something about how many suits do you own, right? So let's think about our closets for a second. I think about not just suits, but blouses and pants and whatever. How much do I own? And then how much of it do I actually wear? How much of it do I actually wear? And it wows me to think about that question. How about you? When you think about your wardrobe, just your wardrobe, you have many things. How much of it do you actually wear? Have you considered that question? Anyone? Has anyone ever thought about that and then said, hey, I may need to do a giveaway?
I really only wear about 5% of my wardrobe. Recently, just due to the pandemic, I'm home more than I ever used to be. And so a lot of the bells and whistles, accessories and things that I thought I needed in all those outfits, I'll say this, a lot more places and things that I go, it seems like, have moved into more of a relaxed look. So I really don't dress up as much as I used to.
I relate to that, Kimry. I do. I literally have more of these muumuus now than I do anything else. Because that's the atmosphere. That's the atmosphere that I work in. I can always get up, put on, take a quick shower, jump in a muumuu, wrap my hair in a beautiful scarf because I love my crowns, and that's it. So I'm thinking, wow, things have changed. The pandemic did change how we move about and how relaxed we are. Was it for the good? Do you think it was for the good? How do you feel about that?
Um, Blessings, everybody. I have a struggle with um, in transition, moving from one state to the other and trying to decide what to get rid of. And then being in church 45 years, and I went to a service on Sunday and I wore a dress, but it seems like people are moving toward more casual things. And I don't know if my mind is ready yet or I haven't recognized. And I was praying and saying, God, I don't want to get stuck in a rut and not move forward because if I'm stuck there, I'm stuck in other places. But this was kind of a new beginning for me. I was going to jump on here today, so I just want to make sure I'm not stuck, and I'm sure I don't wear half the stuff I have. But
And
letting go of it is traumatic.
it is, right? It is.
What if I need this? Yeah.
Well, thank you for coming in and thank you for your commentary. And we hope that this will help you. I know that there's a few times of the year that, I just go through the closet because if I'm not wearing it, someone needs this stuff. So, because of my compassionate heart and my love for humanity, I naturally will just go through there every now and just say, hey, I gotta bless somebody. Some woman needs, these things. So I will, move through that process. So hopefully it will get you unstuck. If you still enjoy wearing your dresses to church, though, don't let people change that for you. Let that be something that's who you are. That's your authenticity. That's how you show up, and that should be okay.
Thank you.
Mm-hmm. Then they talk about the Arthur goes on to talk about our homes and the way we spend time in our homes. People have so you have big homes, you have small homes, you have townhomes. I've been in all of them except for mansions. One day, if necessary. I don't think it's necessary for me because I spend time in those rooms, all of the rooms. But Arthur does mention how many rooms do you have? Think about, and then which of the rooms do you spend the most time in? This is just to begin getting us to thinking about the principle. How many rooms do you have, and where do you really spend most of your time? Anybody want to pop in and share?
The Lord kind of took me through what for me was a difficult transition. I think He does everything for a reason, and it was some learnings and things that He taught me along the way, but it was very difficult for me in terms of where, from a locale perspective, that I spend my time. And we had in May of 2023 the word of the Lord that I received at Millions Conference, and not because it was spoken directly to me, but because I reached up and I grabbed it and I made it mine and I contended for it, was that I was going to receive a supernatural reset. So when I got home, the way things unfolded is the Lord led my husband and I to put our home on the market. And we put our home on the market. In faith, we packed up everything. Over a 5,000 square foot home, packed it all up. And because the houses in the neighborhood sold quick, so we were told, packed everything up. We're like, we're going to be out of here 2 weeks, we'll be done. Well, that 2 weeks turned into 10 months when we had packed everything up.
Right.
So I found that where I used to roam about and have several places to go in the house and several things to do in space, quickly overnight, I was reduced down to the basement floor with concrete and 2 rooms that the whole family lived in for 2 months, 10 months.
How did that feel?
And it showed me a few things. One, a lot of what I thought I needed to survive, I don't. The reason why I believe now I really only wear 5% as well is because everything was packed up and taken away. I didn't have it. And I found myself rotating the same few clothes. I found myself rotating the same 2 rooms with 3 other family members. And so I think it was several lessons in it for me, but it triggered my mind when you talked about where you spend your time, because I thought I needed the mansion or and I really don't. I just needed a few square feet to be able to navigate, because at the end of the day, I still kept my sanity and the Lord kept my mind the entire time and kept my focus and my perspective right. That no matter what, it says in all things we are to be content.
Yes. So you downsized and still found favor in the Lord within that complacency. That complacency, yeah, that we all need, right? And knowing that all it takes is just a little bit, right, for us, and our survival kicks in, right? That which we need. Thank you so much for sharing that. This is really good. I tend to spend time in all the rooms because I have, I do business at home, and every room is a business. The living room is a podcast. The the den is my office and library. The kitchen is where I cook and package and create food and oils and natural things. So it's like every room has a purpose. And I think that's just the way God designed it for me, because I'm a creator, right? And so every room has purpose. And then of course there's the bedroom where I just need to go and get some sleep because my mind is always on 1,000. so thank you for sharing that. All right, now let's think about our phones for a second. How many apps do you have? Our cell phones. We have a whole lot of apps. How many apps on your phone do you actually use? Here, write it. I'm recording. How many of your apps do you actually use on that phone? Think about it. Forgive me, my husband was giving me notification about the freeze dryer. We're going through a freeze dryer experience together. We love it. Kimberly says 8. Oh, you're welcome, Dottie. We are so glad to have you. She says 8. I used maybe 6. Yeah, it's really working well, but I have a ton of them on my phone. It's like, why do we occupy our space? Like there's this distribution. You've got 25, 30 apps, but you only use 5 of them. So can we back out of some of them? Can we minimize the way these apps show up to us so that we can spend less time in our phones? When I think about it, how about you? What do you think about that? I think there will come a time when we have to minimize the way we are in our phones. Distribution of time.
I want to say, I heard Miss Kimberly earlier say that she cut out some TV time. And I think a lot of apps are on my phone just because if I'm moving around, I probably think I need to have the apps with me as opposed to carrying a laptop or something. So that's why there's a lot of clutter. But like you said, I need to get rid of some of that. It's just taking up space. And it probably is also a temptation in some ways because I could afford to get rid of um, wasted time on social media. Some of the time is well spent, but some of it is not. And so I could get rid of some of that. So that's good thinking. I love it. I want to circle back to what you said about how many rooms do we actually need in the midst of my transition. I'm thinking, oh Lord, I would love to have that, you know, big house at this time in life and financially. If I just look at it without walking in faith, it looks like, oh, that's not going to happen yet. And so right before I got on the call, I've been looking at a couple of apartments. One was 800 square feet, the other was 600, both one bedrooms. And I'm thinking, oh no, I absolutely have to move into a 2 or 3 bedroom because if I have friends coming from out of town, I'm like, no, you need to find Jesus and find yourself and probably live in a 1 bedroom so that you have a reason not to have people in your space until you balance your life. So sorry for that long discourse, but
Well, but we know what we need. You know, life drives us. Life drives that for us, right? So, and I relate to that because I lived in an 800 square foot townhouse for almost 20 years. But when I left there, I had $100,000 in the bank.
mm,
That was my
okay,
rationale. Like, I can stay here. This is just fine for my goals. Because when I leave here, I
yes,
want to be in that house. So not only were
okay,
we able to move into that house, we had the capacity to do so, we had the credit to do so, but when we moved in, we had the money to purchase the things that we needed versus going and opening up discount. Because you know what happens when you buy a new home. Guess what? They want to send you a deal for this, come buy this car, come open this account. You know, everybody's looking for you to tap into your resources because now you bought
yes.
this home, and that is considered real estate. You know, it's considered. I, why is my husband talking like 1,000 levels up while I'm on this recorder? Anyway,
That's what
who said that? Come in.
I said. What they do.
I know, right? Thank God we are truly authentic here on this channel because I show up in real time every day. We have real family. We have real families, a lot of things going on in our businesses and while we're doing business at home. So I just needed to say that. If you hear the ice machine, that's what's happening in the kitchen.
Okay.
So, but anyway, to your point, Dottie, thank you and welcome to the call from, we have Cherokee on the line. What state are you coming in from? Thank you
Hey,
and welcome to the call.
Amen.
We are chiming, circle back to Dottie. Thank you for sharing those feelings and thoughts. They're important. But just to give you a little feedback and encouragement on that 800 square feet, you know, just know that someone on this call has a story that supports what you're thinking or maybe considering, right? We walk 1,000, we walk 800, we walk these miles together, right? So
Yes.
so again, don't let what people, the community, the your neighbor or anyone else, you know, design how you think about what's next for you because your next decision depends on, I mean, your tomorrow depends on the decisions that you make today. And that's for all of us, right? We are always having to make a decision. I love it that our girl Cherokee is on here. I remember when she had to make some decisions, and she did. Now she has that beautiful angel investor over there. That's called making a decision while you grow in the things of God that He has for us. So I'm going to go ahead and move on. Anyone else want to comment before I move on? Any other comments about that? The rooms in the house, the smartphone, the clothing, because we're gonna move on to some other things in just a second. All right, so the author uses an example from a entrepreneur of a business, and he says, in their own words, I accept that I cannot do everything, so I work only on things that are vitally important using the 80/20 rule. Another comment from an entrepreneur of a blog says, the two primary productivity concepts I apply are the following. First, the 80/20 rule, which helps me to identify which tasks deliver the biggest rewards. And thus, I should focus on two, the theory of constraints. The theory of constraints, which helps me to identify what the immediate constraint is that's holding me back from a desirable result. And I believe all of you on this call have already mentioned that particular theory of constraint without even thinking. It's a whole theory, right? It's a whole theory. That's good, huh?
Yes.
Yeah. So he goes on to talk about the 80/20 in particular areas of our life he wants us to begin to think about, and that's 80/20 in business. In business, you could literally analyze your customer base and decide to either fire if you need or hire if you need, but he mentions fire 80% of the least profitable customers. If they're the least profitable and you have to spend just as much time with all of your customers to encourage them to buy, because business is about buying and selling, right? I don't care what it is. Whatever the business is, you're buying and selling something. And your least profitable customer, perhaps we should spend more time with the profitable customer, even if profit means compassion, because I don't want this to always be about money, because I'm a compassionate human and I show up here on these calls not for money. I show up here on these calls because that's God's assignment for my life. So that's the profit. That's the profit. So I want to make sure we understand that this is not the word. The use of the word profitable can be about the assignment that you were called to. I was called to do this kind of work every day with Black women leaders who are blazing the trail, and maybe just together as a collective we can support each other on this journey, right? So so that's what this is all about. And so, but if the women aren't showing, let me use it for example. Let me show you what this could look like. If the women aren't showing up to this call, then perhaps this call is not necessarily the profitable thing. But because I've been consistent with the assignment that has been given, where the word says where there's two or three in agreement, give me, as long as two or three gonna show up, God, I'm gonna show up, right? Because that's the assignment for me in the earth, right? So what do you think about that principle of, if you are in sales, or what do you think about that? I'm going to go to Kimry because she's a consultant, and Raquel as well, because Raquel is in wholesale. Like, what keeps you doing that work? What keeps you, Kimry, doing the work that you do? What keeps you doing the work, Dottie, Cherokee? I would love to hear from you. What keeps you doing that work?
Well, part of what, I mean, just whether, no matter what that work is, quote unquote, what just keeps you doing it. Part of what keeps me doing it is my family has to eat. So that's one. I'm blessed to have a wonderful husband and man of God.
Yes.
We are in a 2-income household, right? So for me, what keeps me showing up is one, my family has to eat. I actually heard a very interesting uh, comment by Myron Golden the other day, which really I believe is so true. That I'm a goal-oriented person, and when you really are aspiring to accomplish something, it actually, whether you hit the goal or not, the journey in pursuit of that thing actually makes you a better person.
It does.
And so I am a dreamer. I'm not just a dreamer, I'm a finisher. And so I want to show up in life so that the little people that I'm raising understand the mandate on their lives. You don't just get to come here in this earth and just exist. You have an assignment. And I want to, as I'm thinking about it, I don't want the Father to look at me as someone that buried the gifts
Right.
or the gift. I would love for him, and I don't know if I'm there yet, but I would love for him to see me and be the one to say, let me take the gift from the one and give it to you, because you know how to multiply.
Right.
I'm trying to multiply. So I really want to get to the point that I become unstoppable, and I really this trying to navigate. Let me back up. Trying to incorporate the TLS program into what my life already was is pushing me every day to remove the excuse and remove the barrier and figure it out.
Right.
So yeah, that is just I guess, what God has just placed on the inside of me and how I was raised, that it's a fight to the finish. And not only, here's what I'll say, and then I'll close. Dr. Eve, you have me thinking, because one thing that I find in the last few years I'm having to constantly do is fight spiritually. I always say I'm a fighter, and I'm not a fighter in the natural. I never really have been. But lately, over the last 5 years, I've had to be a fighter spiritually. I always have to be contending. I'm always fighting, always having to fight. So that is actually giving me more muscle in the natural realm to continue to fight, because I have to do it so much in the spiritual realm.
Right.
So that's what I'll say.
Thank you for that commentary, Kimry. I just want to ditto that, because I hold on to something that Myron also said, and he repeatedly, it's in my heart. Be so you can do and have. Be. And what does be mean? Like, do we merely exist, or do we walk in this purpose? And then, before I got on the call, I thought about how many people really understand their purpose, right? And it wasn't until I really understood my strengths that I could be so I can do and have. And when I took the Strength Finders test, it revealed to me why I was so unhappy in certain work settings, because it wasn't creating community. Why I was so unhappy in corporate, because it was limiting my ability to build the capacity or to dream, right? Because I come into corporate thinking about your strategic plan. And when I can't help you to build out your strategic plan because you hired me for this, and then you asked me, well, why are you doing that? I didn't hire you to do that. It just hit me to the core, because my strength, my natural ability, is to help you achieve the strategic plan, the goals, right? So when I realized what my strengths were, I felt like this is why I wake up every day. I would wake up and do this thing every single day, whether someone paid me or not. And when I can walk in that every single day, then my purpose is to fulfill that on earth. And what is God's assignment for that strength that he gave me? And that's to touch a life, to disciple, to touch
Mm.
others with all the things that he's given me to encourage or to help other people to realize their truth, their strength, their goal, and make sure that they're aligning in that thing to see. And I see in people what they don't necessarily see in themselves, because that's the lens in which God has allowed me to operate, right? So be so you can do and have is what Myron said. And that thing stuck out to me because that was real life walking in truth. Thank you for coming to the call. Thank you again, Kimry, for that commentary. Thank you, Michelle. Welcome to the call today. How are you showing up? Please drop in the chat where you are coming in from, Michelle. What city and state, and how are you doing today? We are also.
I am good.
Okay,
I'm in
awesome.
Poughkeepsie, New York, so I'm working today. And the Wi-Fi in the here I'm working is terrible, so I was trying to come in earlier, and it just wouldn't let me. So finally, I'm getting the tail end of this. And I'm showing up today by I'm reading that book that we were doing.
Mm-hmm.
I ordered it and it came, so I'm going over it.
Good.
I'm running some reps and I'm doing some prep.
Awesome.
My solar.
Let's go.
And now I moved recently and I have a garden,
Mm-hmm.
so I'm prepared for some fall crops.
Awesome. Michelle, what's Poughkeepsie?
Poughkeepsie, New York.
Oh, that's where you're from. Oh, that's where you live now.
Yeah.
I know you're from
Mhm.
Jamaica, right?
Yeah.
Yeah. So Poughkeepsie, I never heard of that before. Where is?
Poughkeepsie?
Yeah, I never heard of that.
That's almost next door to the home of Franklin Delano Roosevelt. We're in that
Oh,
area.
okay. Again.
Popular Culinary Institute of America. So
Mhm.
you've heard of Vassar College and
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
Morris
Welcome.
College. That's all this area.
Awesome. Welcome to the call. Excited to hear all that you're doing too with preparing in the garden and doing this great building of your PFS, your personal financial statement, running them reps so that when you're ready to actually buy, you are positioned to do what is necessary to do that. That is one thing that I am big on, that I learned in the program very quickly, was that if we don't know what we're worth, how do we know, how do we put buying something ahead of understanding our personal financial situation? Or really diving into the question of how much does it cost to be me? Like that question, when I was asked that question, and I'm sorry I'm deviating, but I think it's important. When I was asked that question, immediately I heard people just throw out numbers. Like I threw out a number. Like I really didn't understand what that question was about. But that question was real. Like I learned that, what is your essential needs? Like, how you spending your money? Like, is the lack of our savings because we are just spending money? Like, this also can be applied to the 80-20 rule. Like, how are we distributing our dollars? The Pareto principle. Is it uneven distribution? Where should we be putting more of it to prepare for our elevation? Our season of elevation, because we all go through these seasons, right? That's good. I love that God dropped that in my spirit right there. Anybody have a comment about that? I welcome you. Welcome in from Seattle, Washington, en route to Texas.
Okay.
Anybody? Yeah, go ahead.
No, this is refreshing because I am really. I think we were talking about our jobs. Is that what Kimry's last thing we were talking about was? Maybe our jobs.
Yeah, in business. And I said, well, what makes you like keep doing what you're doing? Because the author was actually talking about really analyzing how things are set up in our lives, our business, our home, our work. And he was talking about business in that particular instance, and how we can get rid of the least profitable things so that we want 20% of what we do to bring us the 80% of greatness, versus doing 80% that's not only bringing us 20% of our value. We want 20% to bring us 80% of our value. That's the principle. Does that make sense?
Yes, and I hate to go aside, but who is the author, and are we all reading this, or you're taking us on this
Oh,
journey?
no, we're all reading this. We've been reading it. This is chapter 10, 15 secrets
Praise
successful
God.
people know about time management. It was one of the books that we read in TLS. I'm just going backwards because
Okay.
I hold group meetings, and I just
Yes.
feel like we did a lot of surface reading. Like, people would recommend a book, but we really not, like, I believe in application. So here's the thing about knowledge. You get knowledge and you get understanding, but the wisdom is in application.
Amen.
you know and so I go back to all the books and I take a deep dive into it. How am I applying this to my life? And are we, because it's going to strengthen us? Are these books just being offered to us to just like read on our own? Or how do you view that? How, as a community, can we help each other to look at these different viewpoints, because we all have different perspectives, different lenses. Some of us are in business. Some of us are employed. Some of us have children and don't. Some of us are married and not. So we all have different lenses. And by bringing these books to community and having conversations about them, we extend our ability to understand and apply this to our lives. Does that make sense?
Yes, because
Any
I had a lot of knowledge and wisdom, but did not apply it.
apply. Wisdom is in the application. Yep.
Yes, that's good.
So let's look at this from another business. He says he uses business again, or if we, when he says you could do the same with Salesforce, like apply the 80/20 rule. And he says he's just talking about sales right here. So y'all, that forget the word fire. Fire the majority of your sales representatives who are actually producing the least. Let's look at that. What is producing the least in your life? Let's look at that, for example. Like, look around you. What area of your life is producing the least? When I think about business, which most of us are in business or vying to improve our lives through business and career, life, business, and career, right? In business, we have to look at what is bringing us. I don't want to spend so much time on something that's not gonna bring me the fruit, because it's about the fruit, right? If that branch, if it's not growing, you got to be a fruit inspector. If
Mm.
that thing isn't bringing fruit, then it might need to be pruned. So I look at that differently when he says that about the majority fire majority of the salespersons who are actually producing the least. Well, if the branch is producing the least in my business, I am going to prune it back, because I don't want to keep spending, I'm going to nurture this branch. I'm going to nurture this branch. Maybe it'll grow. Baby, if that thing ain't grown yet, you might need to cut it back. Because when you prune something, what does it do? It grows. I think about Jesus when he was talking to the disciples. All of us love God here, so and I'm a believer, so that's I ground this community in the Lord. Um, when he shared that about with the disciples about the branch, he said to them, when that he held that branch and said that when that branch is no longer producing, what did he do with it? It was no good for anything except the firewood. It was no good for anything except firewood. That was its last. That was his last leg. Well, do you know that that's how he feels about us too? That we are to produce. We were created to to reproduce, to produce, to grow, to all the things in every way, create. We were designed to do those things. But if it's not growing, if it's not doing what it's doing, you can take this same principle where they fired them, fire that thing, fire that thing that's not producing. We're just going to twist the words just a little bit because he's talking about sales, but we can still apply it with wisdom, right? Anybody? Anyone?
I was thinking, even when he pruned it, and it was thrown in the fire. Yeah, that was the last journey.
That was the last journey.
So maybe they had some sparks left over, and it was able to kindle something else. I don't know.
Well,
But
once
I think God.
it was able to give me some warmth. It was able to give me
For a
some warmth.
hot cricket.
Like, think about it for a minute. Like, we all, like, began this journey as babies. And then we were nurtured until we were adults. We were under the tutelage of our primary people that we learn from our adults, our parents, secondary learners from school and all those things, that community. And then we turn 21. And we go out into the world with whatever it is that we learned, and we have to thrive on our own, right? And in the thriving on our own, we learn a lot of things. We're now on our own and required to fulfill the assignment. We're now on this journey. God works in generations. I thought about that. I had been on this journey since I was grown, and many times I made decisions. Some decisions were good, some were not so good. And because of the decisions that I made, would dictate what path I was on, how slow, how fast, how quickly I got there, whether things were delayed in my life. Decisions caused that. So throughout that, even with those decisions that were made, God would redirect, but he would always use the things that he walked us through, that he helped us over. He would use those things to get the glory. So those were our testimonies. If you ever look back over your life and realize that you have been a place in your life, and you look back at how God is using that very same story right now to help you help someone else, he uses everything. Like, nothing is wasted. And so as long as we continue to walk on the journey, the path with his will over our lives, remembering that the most important prayer of all prayers was the one that Jesus told the disciples to pray, which is Our Father. It's the only prayer that's impenetrable by the enemy. Why? Because we're asking for our Father's will. We're repenting for anything that we have done. We're asking for forgiveness. We're sending up Judah and thanksgiving to him because he identifies as our Father. So I'm sorry, y'all. I wasn't supposed to go there like that. But anyway, I'm gonna move on unless y'all want me to stop. If you want to share, I can keep going. Let's just tap on over to another area where. Go ahead.
I was just gonna say, when you were making a comment around like purpose, and I believe what I heard you saying was you were referencing the environment of corporate. And I think what I took away from what you were saying is kind of like that environment not being conducive to the gift that was inside of you.
Correct.
Or recognize. And so that really struck a chord with me when you said that, because I feel like there's so much, and I've always felt like that there's so much greatness inside of me, but yet, even though I'm in what some would call this great position at work, I often feel like a failure. I often get treated as if I'm not good enough, or I can't stack up to the competition in my corporate environment, and I always feel out of place, and I know, I think one thing the Lord is probably revealing to me more this year is because they don't know how to receive you or contain what's inside of you. It's not that the atmosphere is not conducive. Well, I don't want to say that, because sometimes he'll give us resistance to sharpen us. But anyway,
Sure.
for the first time in a long time when I got in TLS, I was like, oh my gosh, it was like breathtaking to be around people
Mm-hmm.
that I felt like thought like me. And I felt welcome and I didn't have to hide or shrink back. And so, anyway, I'm still on that journey. Like, I ask the Lord all the time, what is it that you want me to do?
Mm-hmm. You know.
Here, why did so many things frustrate me? Like, so he's still working with me
Mm-hmm.
to figure out whatever I'm supposed to be doing. I guess it's like a discovery or something. I don't know,
It
but I'm just
is. It is a
okay.
discovery. It is a
Yeah.
discovery, Kimry. And the one thing I want you to take away from that comment and your thoughts around that is it may not necessarily be that you don't belong in corporate or feel like it's not maybe not conducive to the talent that you have or getting the results that you need. It may just be that the pathway to pursuing the talent and walking in that talent that you have every day just might need to be redefined. Like
Okay.
I've worked in corporate, I've worked in healthcare, I've worked in academia, all three, 10, 10, and 10. The thing is there were a set of ideal skills that felt good in every single atmosphere. And when I identified in that triangular, circular motion, there were three things in the dead center of that circle out of academia, out of corporate and healthcare that were consistent with who I am.
Got it.
So there's like this thing we have to do. We have to analyze. We have to literally analyze, use the circle of where you are. What is the thing on that particular area? Like I looked at healthcare and said, what did I love most about that? It was the research. I sat on research. I helped the nurses and the doctors to produce scholarly research based on their evidence-based practices in the hospital. So it wasn't necessarily the healthcare itself or the client, the patients, which I do love because I was their first and foremost contact as a scheduler for OR. So I would be that person that was removing the fear. So because I'm naturally compassionate, God put me in a place that automatically those who were going into surgery was going to talk to me first. You see? So that was a thing that he wanted me to continue to develop. But that thing being in that atmosphere put me in, as I was growing in my academic career, it put me in a place to connect with the thing that God was designing me for. Telehealth, group processes, all of the things that I'm doing right here, like helping people to thrive, move, define, well-being for themselves, like as a human, where are the resources, like that's what I'm called to do, like make sure you got what you need, like I'm gonna go do the research on this thing. We're not gonna be thinking about it. We gonna make sure there's some research that supports why we should do this thing. We're not taking people like how Tiffany tell us. Don't be taking my word for it.
Right.
Go look it up.
That's
So
right.
I'm called to do that. I'm called to show us, look, this is how we supposed to show up. This is how this is done. So I did an assessment of myself in all those areas. I found out in healthcare, I was taking away telehealth. I was taking away the research agenda, the piece. I put that in the middle of the circle. In academia, I was taking away advising students. I was taking away working with faculty. I was taking away HR, how to help build up a strong entity, right? I was taking away from corporate America. I was taking away the ability to work with corporate partners in Fortune 500. So I was taking away, those were things that I could put in the center of that circle to redefine who I was going to be as an entrepreneur.
Got it. This is so good. Like putting them different tools in your toolkit, and you never know what you're gonna build later.
Exactly. So I hope that made sense because that's literally what I did. And so I'm
Yes.
today walking in complete purpose and clarity, and I take it all over the world. Like I've been to
Yes.
six of seven continents, now working with, students in other colleges and on other continents. Like all of these opportunities are opening up because I have awakened. The thing
Mm.
that God has for me has awakened on the inside. And as long as I
Right.
show up every day to do that and don't get distracted,
Mm.
by what everybody else is doing, then I'm going to be standing in that thing that Myron talked about, be, so you can do and have.
Mm. You better come on here, Dr. Eve, okay?
All right, all right. Come on, help me out.
That's good.
I believe
Thank
again. Did you say something? I'm sorry.
I said that's good.
Yeah, I hope this helps everyone. Let's look at yard work that's a simple one. Like he talks about how much time and money do you spend on your yard each year? Like we have these immaculate yards, like in our where we mow, we weed, we all the things. But what part of it really matters? Now think about that for a minute. Because we're doing this landscaping for who? Because we got to conform to the neighborhood. We got to conform to what our neighbors are doing. I don't want no grass. I told them, but by next year or in 2 more years, it's gonna be a garden. Everything. My motto is why grow grass when we can grow food. I have a different way. Grow food, not grass. So I go to my neighbors' yards and I pick up all their pine straw and I cover my grass so it can go away. So, how much of your money and time do you spend on your yard? And in my opinion, how much money and time do I spend satisfying somebody else instead of walking in the thing that's gonna make me okay, my family okay? Like we that's a box, right? Isn't that a box that we put ourselves in? Is that a box? That's a box that we put ourselves in. So 80/20 applies to that too. Like, how's that working for you, right? How about reading and studying? Like he talks about how much time in the reading and studying. She says my teacher taught me to read the first and last paragraph of each chapter, the first sentence of each paragraph, and in between. Right? I struggled with reading in school, whether y'all know it or not. I'm an audio learner, so telehealth, audio learning, all of those things that helped me to be a scholar because I had a little bit of a deficit. My brain was processing things a lot slower than my peers, right? I'm very open about that. I talk about that in my books because I really believe that my story helps people. Like, wow, I had that too. Like we don't have to hide these things. We can free ourselves of these things that we thought were flaws. It wasn't really. We just had a different way of learning. They just was learning a different way than me. I had to see it 4, 5, 6 times. And if I lose the meaning of a word, then I was going to lose the context of everything. So, but if I could hear the lecture and pay attention to hearing the lecture, I could walk out of that lecture hall and go write down everything that I heard my professor say because I was focused. So let us make sure that we are focusing on those things so that we are getting 80% of our value from 20% of what we do. Like, does that make sense?
Yeah.
Okay, I want to make sure we're consistent, that this is what I'm trying to convey about that is consistent. So again, this chapter has a story to it as well, but let's go directly to, because I don't want to take this conversation too long or over our time together. Let's talk about the 80/20 mindset. He goes to, at the back of the chapter, he mentions the important takeaway from this chapter on the Pareto principle is not to run around with a calculator and actually do the math to figure out 80% or 20% calculations in different areas of our life. But it's more important to just simply have a mindset of identifying the few things and activities that will give you what? Outsized returns. Just like my yard. Mowing my yard not going to give me no return. But if I plant some seeds in there, it's going to give me some vegetables. Just a simple adjustment. You know, spending too much time reading a thing is not necessarily going. I can get an audio book. Does that make sense?
Mm-hmm.
Because of my style, right? Look for shortcuts. Do the most important things is exceptionally well, and the rest just good enough or not at all. What's your key performance indicators for you, right, in every area? 3, develop your skills to be exceptional in a few targeted areas. Don't try to master everything, right? I want to master this. I need to master community. I need to master, community engagement. I need to master, bringing these resources. I need to master what God, see, what is that thing? What is that one thing that God gave you to master? Do you realize that once you identify that one thing that He's called you to master, that you can diversify it in every way, through books, through podcasts, through sales, through creation of products? Just the one thing. Just master the one thing. Dominate. He put us here to dominate in our sphere of influence. Isn't that something? The next and final thing was realize that you can work less, stress less, and increase your happiness by figuring out the 20% of goals and activities that are most important to you. Now, what's going to happen after I do this video? I had to work on this video. I had to read the chapter. I had to dissect it. I had to get some meat from it. I had to build community. I had to have a meeting. I had to have a conversation. I had to begin to get us to just do this collectively together, because that's what I'm called to do. Now, when I get off of here, I got to break it down. I got to break down the bite sizes of everything, that comments that everyone made. I got to write an article, a blog later about it. So you see how that one thing, the one thing that I'm walking in, the purpose that I'm called to do, becomes so much more because I just showed up in this call to build community like God told me to. Right?
I think it's really interesting how you broke down ways, and I don't know if it's monetized, but ways it's you took a lemon and then you made lemonade, you made lemon meringue pie,
all of it.
You made
Mm-hmm.
you had lemon slices to go on your
Mm-hmm.
salmon. I don't know. You just you took one
and make it 50.
And that is something that's a skill I have not acquired yet.
You will.
Because I do a lot of stuff, but I haven't figured out what is that one thing, and then how do you make that one thing like run several reps?
Mm-hmm. So yeah, that's good. I'm glad you asked that question, because first and foremost, I needed to understand what God's assignment was for me. His theme in my life recurs every single day, and that's touch one life, touch millions. Like he said, I didn't call you to millions. I called you to disciple. And when I think about discipling based on how he brought me through life, how every single time it was him. I'm using those stories. I'm using those testimonies. They became the stories that I now use in my materials, in my books, in the series that I'm now writing is called Touch One Life, Touch Millions. You know, you see how I went only with what God called me to do. The theme in my life is touch one life, touch millions. How many times we go after the millions when God told us don't lead the 199, he don't lead the one. And how often do we do that? Like, because it may not look pretty or it may not seem valuable. But in the industry in which he's called us to do this great work, the same principle still applies. You know, there's that one. And that one, like, this is a community of 6 leaders on this call right now. Each one of you are called to have audiences. I don't know what your target market looks like, and frankly, that doesn't matter to me. What matters to me is there's 6 beautiful leaders on this call, and you might, Kimry, have a direct line to 20,000 people right now, you know, or Michelle has a whole nother country attached to her. Raquel has, you know, her city, her venue, her line of work in terms of healthcare and the improvement of lives. That goes for each and every one of us on this call. So while it may not look like much, my numbers are bigger than you think. Because he called me to touch one person that will then go and touch millions through whatever it is he embodied me with to share with you on this journey. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
Yes.
And then it becomes
sure.
big. Then the numbers be like, wow, okay, Kimry has 20,000 people. And okay, well, I've touched Kimry in this particular issue. You know, she is using that now. Please go use it. Tell me what you thought about it. You know, how did it work for you? How's it working for you helping your people? You see? Because the goal is to do whatever I can in my assignment that you can take it and go use it in the work that you do. Like, because this is a collective. We are called to do this work collectively. I'm called to build collective work and responsibility. I'm called to unify. I'm called to help people walk in there to determine who they are, self-determined. I'm called to help people walk in their creative being, to design what life should look like for them. I'm called to make sure that you understand that even in faith, you still got a whole lot of work, because a lot of times the reason why we can't be so we can do and have is because we haven't done that inner work that's ongoing. Why? Because we are always confronted with things in the world. We're always daily. That's why I always say we start these calls with, how you showing up today? Because how you feel matters to me right now. It's going to matter about what you take away from this call. It's going to, how you showing up in this space today may be something we need to pray about before we end this call. Yeah. Does that make sense?
Yes.
So how does this apply if you are an entrepreneur? Well, would an 80-20 mindset help you to stay focused on your strategic plan and spend less time chasing endless new opportunities? It has for me, because I'm an entrepreneur. I stay focused on my strategic plan and spend less time on endless new opportunities. As an executive, what's one way that you think, Kimry, you're an executive, how would you apply this mindset to help you to maximize your return from any limited resources? Say that again.
what are you calling the mindset?
It's called the 80-20 mindset. That's where you use 20% to get 80% of your value.
Oh, I mean,
20% of your energy to get 80% of your value.
how would I apply it? I mean, I
As an
haven't
example.
read the
That
book and the details of what it's talking about, but I mean, um, it would probably just reshift everything for me. I think as you were talking about, you don't have to be good at everything. These are the things that you need to master well, and these are the things that can just be okay.
yeah.
And I struggle with trying to be good at everything.
Mm.
But in front of me, I need to kill it.
Yeah, so imagine that, Kimry. Imagine that we are in this community right now. All 6 of us have a different set of skills.
Yeah.
That's why
Yeah.
collective is important. Because I can't
Yeah.
show up doing what Kimry know how to do. I can call Kimry though and say, Kimry, what do you think? Can you host a conversation about this? Or I could go over here to Michelle and say, hey Michelle, can you host a conversation? Because that's not my skill.
Mm-hmm.
Or Cherokee or Raquel, can you host a conversation on the first things we need to do about wholesaling? What's your gift? Or, what is your thing? I'm going to always start with personal financial statements because that's the thing that helped me to win.
Mm.
You understand? It helped me to meet my goal of passive income in TLS.
And I've never even done one before, so I couldn't even tell you.
Right.
So again, yeah.
So it's like, what's our offering in our community, in our collective? What is the offering that we can bring, that strength, that thing that we took away, learned, strategically maximized, right? To get the results. Like Raquel came into TLS and hit the ground running in wholesale. Like, she hit a $20,000 deal in a couple of days. I'm telling you, she's a rock star, and she didn't start doing that until she came in TLS. Whoa. But she the rock star. Here's the thing, though, and here's the thing that I share. She's very modest. While everyone else who really was admiring all that her ability to pull that off and to present in the way that she does is being usurped by others. But it's truly her gift. She has a gift for gab. She has a gift for connecting. She has a gift for networking. She has a gift. Are you there, Raquel? I know you're there. She might be asleep though. She worked last night. She'll get the recording. She's asleep. I had to send it to her. But you see what I'm saying? It's like we have to know how we showing up to the call. So go back to executive. Would an 80-20 mindset help you to maximize the return from any limited resources? As a freelancer, would an 80-20 mindset help you to focus on and service your most important clients? My most important clients is the people who show up on these calls. Why? Because it's helping me to do what God told me to do: build capacity, build collective. Y'all my clients, even if you don't pay anything. Because I'm building know, like, and trust. And that's what we all have to do, is build know, like, and trust with who we are called to. We have to be consistent in doing that. And when we are, if I get a product, which I do have a lot of products, but I'm just not good at sales. Eventually somebody's gonna say, well, why you ain't tell me about that book? Or why you ain't tell me about that? Or, well, one day God will I sell out at conventions. Or somebody's gonna say, get her over there to speak, because she did really good on that conversation. Y'all need to get her to do that. I might get a speaking engagement out of it. I don't know what God gonna do, but I'm gonna show up the way He told me to show up. Okay. Now, if you're a student, Would an 80-20 mindset help you to identify the content that matters most on a test? It would, because I'm going to learn how to read the material. I'm not going to spend a whole lot of time with a whole lot of jargon. Give me the first and last paragraph, and I'm going to read every first sentence of every paragraph in between to get the meat. And if I need to do more, then I'll do more, right? Or I'm going to go get the audiobook. But for me, I've been really loving the books with y'all because I've learned how to study as a scholar. As a scholar, over time, God perfected those skills for me. Like that's no longer like my a weakness anymore, where it was a weakness before because I didn't know how. I had to work with people who could help me learn the most important things I needed to take away from a journal article, and that was the concerns, the successes, the gaps, and the recommendations. And once I knew that, that's how I write now. What is the concern? So the concern for this, when I write my blog, is going to be, what were the concerns about our conversation? What are the successes, right, that we can talk about? Like we all mentioned here, like the successes of a mindset that uses 20% to get 80% of our value. You see how that conversation, just those 5 pages, helped me to develop, my thinking. Like I didn't have to look at the book for that, but having a conversation about it with all of you has allowed me to be able to look at that mindset as something that should be a part of my toolbox.
That's good.
Y'all, that's all I got today. What y'all thinking? Drop some comments drop a comment in the chat of how you will use this information that you learned here today. Again, thank you for coming in from Atlanta, Georgia. We have Ms. Wilson coming in from Nebraska. We have Hepzibah.
That's Dottie.
I know I would use it. I was going to use your last name, Hepzibah, coming in from Seattle, Washington. We have let's see. I know that's right. Kimry says, discover the one thing. And once you have it, it's going to be such a beautiful thing, because what your timeline, in everything you post, everything you market, you'll begin to say, now I see why she show up that way. I see why she show up that way. You are so welcome, Cherokee. I've been missing you. I've been missing you. How will you use this information, Cherokee, to support you in your journey? And then I want to talk real quick about, I'm going to cut off this camera. Thank you all. Let me just say thank you to my viewers over here. Thank you so much for chiming in with us today on Touch One Life, Touch Millions, the podcast, on our journey to understanding how we can use 20% of what we do to gain 80% of our 20% of our time to gain 80% of our value. We are in community, building community collective together. If you would like to join the work that we're doing to stand in your power, please visit us at www.dreveangelsavage.com. You can find that in the description, where you can join us on our Tuesday calls, 1 p.m. Eastern Standard Time, as we build community and power with beautiful Black leaders all over the world. Peace and blessing, and until next time,